Hi everyone, welcome. Thank you for sticking with us all day today. A lot of people had suspected that I just hold the same talk at every PAKCon every year, which was true for 2 years, but not this year. So as you can see, I came up with new ugly truths about venture capital. If you're really interested in the old ugly truths of venture capital, they are still true, and you can find them on YouTube and so on. But still, I'll do a very quick recap, because last year, the spirit here was we were all kind of celebrating each other. Everything is amazing, startups, venture capital, everything is going great. And I pulled out this rather depressing statistics that basically venture capital as an industry doesn't work. If you look at the average returns, so if you just try to have some kind of objective measurement, is this actually successful that we're doing here as an industry, then it doesn't really work. And I explained a little bit further about what does it mean for psychology of venture capitalists, how do VC firms work, and I was trying to be helpful for founders and entrepreneurs by navigating the thought process of VCs and kind of like optimizing their strategy. So that's all still available. That was last year's take, and we looked at the industry itself. Today, I want to talk about something different, in a way, because still probably we are here in the middle of a celebration of innovation, of progress, technology, everything is great. But my thesis is that the past 10 years, which is also kind of the time frame I've been doing Project A, the past 10 years was a massive disappointment. Because I zoomed out, and that's kind of what I expect of you also to do, to zoom out of your daily work and just look at the grand scheme of things. What has really happened in the past 10 years? Elon Musk promises us self-driving cars all the time. They never arrive. They're still not there. Autonomous driving itself, super complicated issue apparently. When I was in school, people told me the fuel cell, Brennstoffzelle, is about to be here. Only 2 years or so, and then all of a climate change problem is going to be solved because everybody's going to drive super clean with basically unlimited supplies of energy. It just didn't really happen. Where's all of the artificial intelligence that we were promised that is going to cure our cancer or detect our cancer early on? And where are all the drugs that supposedly have been developed by AI? Where's all that happening? All that I'm seeing is that my Siri is basically a still shit version than Dragon Natural Speaking for the older ones among us in the late 90s. There is no real difference. If I talk to my Alexa, it really doesn't work. I can ask for the weather, and that's kind of it. If I'm trying to reference the next sentence, after, or the last sentence after when I continue speaking, it just doesn't work out. Where's all that progress that we were promised? So that is, of course, a lot of people now start thinking about, oh yeah, but what I'm doing and what I'm working on definitely has a lot of progress. But if we just look at ourselves also, has our life in the past 10 years really become less stressful? Has technology really helped us to lead very different lives? Actually, if I would put you back 10 years, so now it's 8th of October 2011, what technology around you is very old? And what technology that we have today would be unimaginable. I think it's the iPhone that started in 2006, 2007 actually, so it's been around for quite a while. But ever since then, I can't really think of something that has been, for me, in my personal life, really affected everything from a technological perspective. Has my life become less stressful? Have I been able to spend more time with my loved ones? Has my rent become cheaper? Have my insurances become cheaper? All those things that we have been promised by technology haven't really happened to my understanding. How do I feel about this? And that, of course, is problematic for all of us, right? Because that kind of would have been our task to do that. Our task would have been to fuel progress. When I was in high school and people were promising me the fuel cell, that is 25 years ago. 25 years is also the amount of time it took from the first motorized flight to first crossing the Atlantic, and then it took another 25 years to put a man on the moon and to create a plane that crosses the Atlantic in 3 hours. And in the past 25 years, we got an iPhone. And if you go back now to 2011, you have a slightly larger iPhone. But apart from that, nothing really has happened. So I think that's kind of depressing, of course. But I encourage all of us to take that view from time to time, really think about, has there been technological progress? Now before I go into this, I want to state 3 things, of course, about this. First of all, I am not saying startups don't make sense. I'm not saying that everybody here in the room that's building something, you're building something that doesn't make sense. I'm not saying that. Because a lot of great innovation has been done. A lot of lives have been improved. And I'm always talking about, us, European middle class here in the room. A lot of lives have been improved and made easier by technology. I'm just saying there is no penicillin moment, how we suddenly discovered antibiotics and now life is really, really different. A lot of interesting marginal improvement has happened. So I'm not saying that all of this is futile. I'm just saying I'm missing where's the big bang that we were promised? That's one aspect. Second aspect is, I'm not saying life is shit. I'm not saying the world is a sad place, because the world is actually the best state it ever has been. If we look at how many people we have pulled out of poverty in the past years, it is hundreds of millions, and we're probably in the best state we are ever in. So that is good. I am saying, however, because we could argue relatively quickly, oh yeah, but a lot of innovation has happened under the hood. B2B applications, infrastructure, and so on. Like a lot of cool things in the computer science domain have happened. Yes, I agree, cool things have happened. But I'm only interested in how has this really affected our lives? Because that should be our duty somehow. That should be the duty of companies to somehow create some kind of benefit for people. Otherwise, why do we do it? Just for profits of corporations? Maybe, but not even that has happened. So I don't know if you agree with me. You can think a little bit about all the counter-arguments you come up with that, why the past 10 years actually have been tremendous in terms of technological progress. We'll have time to discuss that. But first of all, I wanted to explain a little what are possible explanations for that. Because actually I'm not alone with that opinion. When I got a lot of pushback during the course of today and people saying, no, you're completely on the wrong train, I researched a little, and fortunately there are some people with credentials that kind of agree with me. There are people in the world of economy who are looking at something called total factor productivity, which is a measurement in their view, like a proxy for progress that we translate in economic growth. It's kind of going down. If you look at life expectancy, you would think, if we can cure all those diseases, life expectancy should go this. Life expectancy in some of developed countries actually is going down, which has a lot of political and social reasons as well, but still that probably gives you a bit of hint that we're not making massive progress, all of us together, in the technology that extends lives. 2 explanations that are possible. One, that's just the way life goes. It's kind of over. It's like Moore's law. Everything is getting more complex, and it's just okay, and it is the way of the world that technological progress is slowing down. Could be possible. Maybe. We don't really know. And that's why I want to, of course, take like a slightly more positive spin to all of this. I, of course, like to think that we are in a situation where we are on a plateau. Yeah? A plateau is like somewhere in the mountains, you reach a plateau and it goes on for a while and then hopefully it goes back up again. Maybe the past 10 years have not been as great in actually delivering technological progress to the masses, but maybe they've been very important in preparing what's to come. That, of course, is a very optimistic view, but I subscribe to that view. And that, of course, also is a task for all of us, whether you are entrepreneurs or operators or investors. That is a task for all of us to then think about what does it mean for me now? Because we are in a time where an abundance of capital is flowing in those industries that we are in. I mean, the VC funding, as one indicator, is insanely big. The companies that are being created are extremely valuable, at least on paper, sometimes also more real than just on paper. And people are beginning to tackle more complex challenges. So if we look at our deal flow today, there's just much more stuff that is more complex than the business models of 10 years ago, which is, of course, a very positive trend. So there is a positive reinforcement cycle of more capital, more talent, more investors, more exits, and more ambition by people to try to push the limits. So we are seeing companies also trying new approaches in semiconductors. We are seeing more companies trying to come up with different ways of transportation, with different ways of how we move about, how we live in the truest sense. And of course, a lot of companies who build the infrastructure that is needed for those companies. So that is very good, that is very positive, and I think we should take that opportunity, of course, to build those companies. In my last talk, when I spoke about the ugly truths about how venture capital works internally. It was very much about recommending people how to behave when dealing with VCs. Because there's obviously then some patterns that you can use to be successful when dealing with VCs. Today I want to talk a little bit about what does it mean for us as investors, but also for operators. So maybe, hopefully, today the so what of this talk might be interesting for you, because I'm going to give some recommendations about how to behave as an investor. If you ever want to penetrate the investor world, then I think that could be a good way. Or, of course, if you want to build a company that does something like one of the ambitious business models that I just mentioned. One ugly truth, the third ugly truth, the second truth was not that ugly because actually I chose the more optimistic view, and the ugly truth really would have been, it's just over. The slowdown will continue. I didn't choose the ugly truth here, so it was not so ugly. The third ugly truth is, if we are tackling all of those new businesses, for us, Leo and Enrico here in the first row, who together with me work on a lot of new business models, we can't be experts in all of them. And at the same time, if I'm demanding the new penicillins of the world, if I'm demanding that to happen, then of course the business models are going to be also more complex. And the question is, how are we going to be able to evaluate them? And the answer is not, we can become experts in all of them. It's just not possible. And the same goes for you if you want to start a company in that field. You can't be an expert in anything. And that's an ugly truth. That's a harsh reality. But I think we have to deal with that. But there's positive news also, a positive truth. Because when we look at the research, how does progress really happen? How is insight being generated in those really complicated, cutting-edge technology development processes? We know that it's a bit counterintuitive, but we know that we overestimate the importance of domain specialists. Of course, we need more of those. Of course, we need to have more education and more know-how in, for example, hard sciences. Of course, we do need that. But a thing that is very important, I think, both for VCs as well as for entrepreneurs, is something that is very encouraging, I think, for all of us, because we need more generalists with an edge. There's a clear explanation why that is, because the best progress in complex innovation processes is being made when we combine a most diverse pool of analogies. That's a very functional mental mechanism. That's a very functional, like a very basic research mechanism. We need to create a pool of diverse analogies. And the term diversity is in that. And I think gender diversity, of course, is one very important aspect. The same goes for educational background, for international, for sociological, just a diverse pool of analogies. That is kind of what we need to do. If we want to use the chance of the plateau is over, it was a boring 10 years in the grand scheme of things, now exciting 10 years, the business models are going to become more complex, whether you're an operator, a founder, or an investor. You need to make sure that, of course, you develop a certain specialty. Of course, you should be interested in that stuff, but you need to make sure that you optimize for a pool of diverse analogies. That is basically the golden ticket. And that is why generalists still can thrive in such an environment. That is what we need to take advantage of that situation. And you need to have an edge, because as my personal career advice or founding advice, having an edge, one specific edge, which can be very different. It could be your background in study, it could be your personal experience, it could be something different. Having some kind of edge, that is important, because you want to give a new analogy into the pool of the team that you're working with. I hope that kind of makes sense. There are like famous examples of people who tackled complex medicine problems, and by the analogies that they were using from completely different fields, actually the outcome is becoming is becoming better. That would be my recommendation. Then I think we have a chance. Then I think we can use all of this money now flowing into this industry. Then I think we don't even need to care anymore if the 10 years past were really exciting, we're not that exciting, we're boring, and then we can really make the most of the next 10 years. I hope you agree with me. I even more hope some of you don't, and we can have a little discussion whether the last 10 years were that boring. But I wanted to give a bit of a positive outlook why I think we can still leverage that. Ugly truths about our business, and at the end, hopefully with this generalist with an edge, a little bit of tangible advice. Hopefully that's been helpful, and maybe we have some questions.
Thank you so much, Uwe. That was really cool. Yeah. clearly some of them liked it too. So maybe they're not all angry with you.
Sounds good.
Do we have any questions from the audience first? Okay, not yet. We have a couple. From Swapcard. So one from Martin Lutsch.
Yeah.
Of course. To what extent, he used to be our head of data, to what extent is our current regulatory political environment responsible for the slowdown?
Very good question. Because of course that slowdown, first of all, I'm very thankful that Martin tends to agree. I'm just deducting that from his way of posing questions. So I'm happy to have Martin Lutsch in my camp in terms of how to see that. It's obviously a very complex capital and resource allocation problem and how we tackle those issues. I think regulatory environment can help. Incentives for research can help, especially incentives for can we spin out fundamental research and take it into a private sector startup environment. I think that's where we're really lacking, especially in Germany. So I think there's definitely a role to be played. I don't think it's the sole factor that stopped this. So I'm not one of those saying, we just need to liberalize and then everything is going to solve itself. I don't think so. I think there are more specific issues about technology progress itself. But for example, if we can work on spin-offs of basic research into companies, I think that would be really helpful. And that's a regulatory issue.
So you think things like the education incubators within like a university where a research project then becomes a company like they do at Oxford University, et cetera, that kind of thing's really interesting.
Exactly, but in Germany, everybody's super worried that MP3 is going to happen again, which is basically the technology was developed in Germany in the Fraunhofer Institute, I think, and then somehow we managed to completely miss out on all commercial application, and we were kind of screwed. So everybody's really scared of that and is trying to hold the intellectual property really close. I think we should work on that because we need that innovation, that basic research, and we need in combination with startup commercial spirit to really bring them to the masses. Right? So, yeah.
So when you're thinking about the next big thing, what do you think your big topic for 2022 is going to be?
My personal one, you mean? I mean, we're very thankful that we see the beginning of a silver lining of people trying out all different kinds of things. Because the startup ecosystem is growing so fast and we see activity popping up in all kinds of sectors. So I wouldn't even be able to say at the moment which one it is. At Project A, I think we are still focusing a lot on enabling infrastructures, for example, for all of those models, and I think we still need that. We are working on exploring where can we actually, for which models can we have that pool of analogies that is needed, the diverse pool of analogies. Where can we really develop insight through that and come up with our own thesis? We don't know fully yet. I mean, there are people who are really specializing on climate change. I think that is great. I don't exclude that from us to really doubling down on that. It could be something more at the core of computing, whether it's quantum, whether it's semiconductors, something like that. It could be transportation, because it's just a massive driver for climate change in all kinds. So somewhere around that, check back next year's talk, Ugly Truths of 2022.
Ugly Truths.
How I failed to find a investment target.
Awesome. All right, we're running out of time, Uwe.
Sounds good.
We're going to have Rainer in a sec, so thank you very much.
Thank you.